Whoa, buddy. Put that thing back in its holster. We haven't gone anywhere.
I don't understand.
Check out the MichaelDukesShow.com for information on how to get access to the podcast.
Welcome to the party, pal.
The Michael Dukes Show.
The greed and the entitlement is astounding to me.
What more could you want from a low-budget radio program?
This is a dumpster fire.
That's just BS.
It is time to get a new perspective.
We know just what you need, and we've got just the cure. Open wide and prepare for a steaming hot cup of freedom.
I just don't fathom it.
The Michael Dukes Show, streaming live across the world.
Oh, yeah, baby. Live around the world on the internet at MichaelDukesShow.com, where you'll find the simulcast on Facebook, YouTube, Rumble, and more. Plus, live on our website on the audio-only live stream at MichaelDukesShow.com, and broadcasting across the state of Alaska on this, your favorite radio station and or FM translator. Good morning, my friends. Welcome to Monday. After just an unbelievably gorgeous weekend, we're ready to rock and roll and dive into this week and get ready to unpack all kinds of great stuff. And I thought we'd start off this week with something fun, right? I mean, fun. Don't we want to know what's going on and finding stuff out? Down here in Homer, this week, there's going to be a special presentation. And it starts off something like this. In the frozen heart of Alaska, where the land shows no mercy, the 53rd running of the Iditarod Trail Sled Dog Race becomes a crucible of endurance, grit, and raw willpower. A historic snow shortage renders the traditional Southern Trail impassable, forcing organizers to chart a new course, 1,128 miles from Fairbanks to Nome. This rerouted path transforms the 2025 Iditarod into one of the longest in race history, testing even the most seasoned mushers. At the center of this epic trial is Jesse Holmes, a determined musher fueled by years of near victories and the unbreakable bond with his sled dogs. After 7 grueling attempts and 5 top 10 finishes, Jesse pushes himself and his team to claim his first Iditarod championship. His journey is one of redemption, resilience, and raw instinct, set against blizzards, exhaustion, and the haunting silence of the frozen Yukon River. This is Iditarod 53, the River of No End. It is an amazing documentary featuring aerial cinematography, harrowing trail footage, and lots of other things, including interviews and stuff like this. It's going to be playing this Friday at the Porcupine Theater here in Homer, which, if you haven't checked it out yet, is it's a pretty cool place. There's a lot of cool stuff going on at the Porcupine. Not only second-run movies, first-run movies, documentaries, foreign films, all different kinds of stuff, but, of course, live shows as well. Now, the Iditarod 53 documentary is going to be playing this Friday, but there is a special event happening right before. If you show up a little early, you're going to get a chance to meet Addy Pederson, who is one of the aspiring mushers out there. She's raising funds and raising her team up for the junior Iditarod, and there's going to be a meet and greet starting at 5 p.m. The movie starts at 6, but at 5 p.m., there's going to be a meet and greet with Addy, and then a brief presentation that she's going to be doing at about 5:45, followed by a Q&A as well. And I thought this would be a great opportunity to have a chat with one of Alaska's next great mushers, and that is Addy Pederson, who's going to be joining us here right now to talk about her attempt at the race, her thought process, and everything else. Addy joins us this morning to discuss it. Good morning, Addy. How are you?
Good morning. Thanks for having me on the show.
Let me hold on. I might have to in here because for some reason I can't hear you, but you can. Let me try this. Let me try this one more time. Let me fix this. This is one of those things. What happens sometimes when you get the deal here. Right there. Okay. Can you hear me, Addy?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. There you go. Sorry about that.
Yeah.
Sometimes it has a mind of its own and just decides to arbitrarily change the settings when I step away for 5 seconds. So, Addy, thanks for coming on board and talking with us this morning. First and foremost, this whole idea of running the Iditarod. I mean, this is a big deal. The Iditarod's a big deal. I've covered this and covered the start of the Iditarod for several years when I was in Anchorage and talked to a lot of the mushers. This is a big deal. How long? Now, first of all, how old are you? And
I'm 16.
You're 16. Okay. How long have you been thinking about running the Iditarod?
Probably my whole life. So my parents grew up with a small recreational kennel, and I think I was about like 11 years old when I first told my parents that I wanted to race, and I wanted to race the junior Iditarod. And so I've built my own kennel from there, and just kind of with the goal of doing some mid-distance races. And Iditarod's obviously a goal, but you do have to be 18 to do that, and it's a pretty big thing to do. So it's one of those things where I don't know if I'll quite do it when I'm 18, but it's definitely something I want to run in the future. So yeah, I've pretty much been mushing my whole life, and it's always been a dream of mine.
I've covered the Open North American Championships now for going on probably 20 years, and that is that is like the drag racing of dog mushing, right? I mean, it's a 20-mile track, 30-mile track, 3 days of mushing, super fast and everything else. And then I watch these mushers go out on the Iditarod, which is a 1,000-mile race, and you're like, it's such a different thing. What made you want to do this long distance versus, something like sprint dogs or something like that? What was the allure of this long 1,000-mile race?
Well, I think for one, honestly, like just like doing the Iditarod, like that, just that name of that and all of that, really brought interest to me. There's like okay, yeah, that's the big thing. That's kind of what I want to do. And then, just as I started training my mid-distance team, I just absolutely love traveling with them. I love camping and just spending days with them on the trail. It's just there's nothing like it. Versus like going really, really fast down a sprint track. So yeah, I just prefer the slower pace, the long days of travel and camping.
Now, you have been racing already, obviously, in some of the junior categories and things like that. Tell us a little bit about your race pedigree as it sits right now.
So I'm going to my third season of mid-distance racing. I've done 2 junior Iditarods. I did Kinnick 200 last year, which was my first 200-mile race, and then I've just done various other 100-mile races throughout the years. Okay,
and are definitely enjoying that. Now, I kind of think of it, I think back, when my kids, I have 5 kids, and I think back to when they were, 14, 15, 16, and I think their interests were a little bit different than going on a long distance race. I mean, how does this play out with your peers and things like that? Most people are worried about what's happening on Snapagram or something, more than, worried about checking their dog's paws and making sure they're fed and checking the gear and doing all that kind of stuff. How is that, how has that kind of separated you from your peers in that regard?
Well, I think everyone, all of like my friends, they find it super interesting, and uh, I mean, a lot of my friends are mushers. I go to these races with other junior mushers, and we all get along great, and we're all pretty close. But it is definitely it takes up a lot of time. So like I am homeschooled just because of how much time it takes and how big of a commitment it is. Um, yeah, so it's definitely one of those things where like people definitely find it cool and all that, but I don't think there's a lot of people that would really want to do this. Like my siblings, for example, they have an opportunity to do it, and they have no interest in going running 100 miles with the dog team. So
Right. They're like, we have to do that as our chores. Why would we want to do this for
yeah,
fun? Right. I mean, that's kind of
hmm
how it's like, in talking with the mushers, even sprint mushers, I've discovered that this is really not um this is really not a hobby, right? This is more of a lifestyle. This is a life commitment. You're committing at a very young age to kind of a life commitment to this is what you're going to, it all revolves around the dogs and the mushing and everything. It actually becomes kind of your whole lifestyle overall, right?
yeah, for sure. I mean, like definitely like having to go from public school to homeschool just to be able to train the dogs more, and yeah, it's not a small thing to commit to.
No, definitely not. We're talking with, is it Pedersen or Peterson? I want to make sure I'm pronouncing it right.
Peterson.
Peterson. Okay. All right. So Addy Pederson is our guest. She is going to be running the Junior Iditarod. Tell us a little bit about the differences between obviously the real Iditarod, 1,000 miles, sometimes more, sometimes less, but about 1,000 miles, and the Junior Iditarod. How does that get you ready? What does that race consist of? Tell us, from start to finish, where does it go, and talk to us a little bit about that since you've run this already.
Okay, yeah. So it's 150 miles. It starts in Kinnick, which is around Anchorage, and goes out to like Yetna Station. That's our halfway point. It's 75-mile run out there, and then there's a mandatory 10-hour camp. So I have to have the dogs there. We all camp for 10 hours, and then we run back. During the 10-hour camp, you're not allowed to go inside, which is something different than Iditarod. At all the Iditarod checkpoints, you're allowed to go inside and warm up. Where for Junior Iditarod, you have to stay outside for the whole race. Um, and then to run the like big Iditarod, you do have to qualify. So you have to complete one 150-mile race and then two 300-mile races. So Junior Iditarod is a Iditarod qualifier. So I already have like qualified in that aspect. I still need the two 300s. But that's one of the things for Junior Iditarod. They want people to run Iditarod. So this is like perfect. Get one qualifier done. Yeah.
And then what are the, you said you have you run the Yukon? What are your 300 qualifiers going to be this go around, you think?
I'm not quite sure. I considering this year maybe doing a 300-mile race, but it's still up in the air. But I was looking at the Copper Basin 300, and then there's a new 300-mile race called the Sioux Dog. But yeah, it's I'm not 100% sure on those. My dad, he used to live near Bethel, so there's the Kuskokwim 300 there, so he always wants me to go run that one. So I don't know, there's different options.
Right. What is it? And as a young musher, obviously you're receiving support from your family, your parents' kennel and everything else, and everything else. What kind of outside help are you trying to raise? Are you trying to get sponsors? What what does it take to run these races as a junior, as a younger teenager? What's it take? What do you have to do? Monetarily, time wise, everything else. Walk us through a little bit of what this looks like.
Yeah, so we just actually calculated out, and I think it costs about $16,000 to have the sled dogs for a whole year of racing and just owning them. And I try and pay for as much as I can, but obviously that's super expensive. So my parents do help out a lot financially. Um, yeah, so with the fundraising, I mean, every single donation is greatly appreciated. I do have a couple current sponsors, and yeah, just really everything's appreciated. Non monetary donations, I've received a lot of people clean out their freezer, and I'll get a lot of like old fish, and that's something that's great. People love getting rid of it, and my dogs love to eat it. So yeah, I definitely received like a lot of support in the community, but it is definitely a big thing to do. It's just expensive.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Now, is this is this a phase, Addy? Are you just going to, or is this something you can see yourself doing for years? I mean, again, looking at these mushers, and like I said, I've interviewed a lot of Iditarod mushers over the years, and the common theme between all of them was this essentially became their life's work. I mean, this is what they did. You know, they love their dogs. That's their friends and their companions. Is this something that you can see yourself doing, indefinitely?
Yeah, I definitely want to keep mushing after high school and college, and be one of those people that you see every year in Iditarod, or at least every year in some sort of sled dog race. Yeah, I couldn't see myself not doing it, honestly.
We're talking with Addy Pederson here. We're getting ready to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to talk with her a little bit about the documentary and what she's going to be doing down here at the Porcupine this Friday she starts at 5 p.m. with her meet and greet and presentation. Again, the documentary starts at 6. We're going to be continuing here in just a moment. Don't go anywhere. The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. We'll be back right after this with Addy Pederson.
Running on 100% pure beard power. Oh, also some coffee. We dip our beard in coffee.
Nice beard.
The Michael Duke Show.
Okay, we're in the break right now. Addy Pederson is with us. It's just you, me, and 35 of our closest friends on the internet, Addy. So just hold the line for a second. Let me go back over here and see if what some of the comments have been. Were you guys in Homer area partying with the Harp Twins? I missed the Harp Twins. They were down there for the big Celtic festival down there, the Highland Games. And so I missed that, but there's always next year. Can't be sure. Brian says if Dukes can't hear you, it must be Monday. I know. It's just one of those things where arbitrarily it just decides. I was working, 20 minutes ago, and now I've decided to change a setting. But we got her back. She's here. Let's see. Henry says dog mushing can be fantastic, especially when running a team of 16 dogs in the moonlight, even when they gallop after a moose along the trail, dragging you along. It's good to have a good leader. Yeah, no, I've seen a lot of we've seen a lot of stuff like that, moose tangles and other dogs and everything else. We'll talk with Addy about that here in a second. Henry also said he once ran the K300, which I'm assuming is the Kuskokwim 300, with a quarter-bred Greyhound Husky mix at -100. It was -70 plus the wind chill. He said it was okay as long as you kept moving. So I can imagine. Look, I love Alaska. Don't get me wrong. I spent a lot of time in the outdoors, born and raised up in the interior. I've seen some cold temperatures, but that's just one thing I've never, I didn't want to go snow machining at 30 or 40 below, let alone trying to run dog sleds. These folks like Addy, they really can, they really do some amazing work out there for sure. All right, we're going to go here. Jeffrey asked a question. Who are your mentors? Do you have mentors that you're dealing with, Addy, out there? I'm assuming your folks for sure, but anybody else, any other mushers that you're working with or who have given you advice or that you do any training with, etc.?
Yeah, so Libby Riddle, she's the first woman to win Iditarod, and she lives out here and still has got a small dog team. And she's helped me out a lot. She's given me a lot of advice, and then just the mushing community is super supportive. So there's been a lot of mushers that I've just send a message to him, be like, hey, like, how do you do this? What's this? Like, and yes, everyone's been super helpful. But the hardest part of living in Homer, there's not a lot of competitive mushers living here. So I don't get to do a lot of like big training runs with other mushers like that. But
Right.
yeah, there's been people that help me out.
Do you ever get up and talk to James Wheeler up in Clam Gulch? That's probably one of the closer. He's one of the sprint dog mushers up there. Do you ever get a chance to get up there and run any of those trails?
I don't think I have. Yeah.
All right. Well, it's always a bucket list stuff out there to be able to do it. Addy Pederson is our guest. We're talking about Iditarod and sled dog racing. You know, again, I mean, my hat's off to you because, again, I see a lot of what kids your age are interested in or talking about or what the trend is or everything else. And it's good that you have a bunch of friends that are basically all kind of into the same thing and you know, you're in that same group because it's a whole different world out there. I think you drop most of the teenagers in the world, you plop them into what you're doing these days, and they would find that it is probably not fun. It's probably hard work. It's probably, you know, you call it a hobby, a lifestyle, and they would call it, gosh, I just want to go to the mall or whatever it is that kids these days do. It's got to be a little bit of a different feel for you out there.
Yeah, no, it's definitely one of those things where it's like there's even been times where there was one race, it was pretty cold, and maybe like 30 below, and I was camping with the dog, so I'm not moving, so I was getting cold, and I even started thinking like why do I do this? Like, why do I keep coming back to it? And then at the end of the race, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited for my next one. Or during that, there's some times where I'm like, why do I do this? But
yeah, I'm sure that there's definitely parts where you're like, what am I thinking? What, you know, but it is the accomplishment and everything else. That is a great thing to do. Addy Pederson is our guest. We're 15 seconds out now from rejoining the radio. Libby and Abby has a ring to it. Meant to be, I guess, said Kim. So, yeah, that's some great stuff. All right, 5 seconds out. Let's get back to it. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Like, share, subscribe, ring the bell, do all that stuff. Let's get more folks involved in this and help support Addy. Here we go.
The Michael Duke Show. Not your daddy. Wait, sorry. Not your daddy? Ooh, not your daddy's talk radio. Huh. Whew. I was scared for a second. Thought we were going down. Here's Michael Dukes and the show.
Okay, welcome back to the program. Addy Pederson is our guest. She is a junior musher out there. And we want to talk with her a little bit more about mushing in Alaska as a 16-year-old. And, you know, again, she's participated in a couple junior Iditarods, and she's working her way up to qualifying for the big race. Now, this Friday at 6 p.m. at the Porcupine Theater here in Homer is going to be the documentary called Iditarod 53, The River with No End, which is the story of the 2025 Iditarod, where they had to change the race from to come from Fairbanks to Nome because of the lack of snow. But Addy's going to be there at 5 p.m. and doing a little meet and greet and a brief stage presentation. So Addy, what are you going to talk about? Give us a tease. You don't have to do the whole talk, but give us a tease about what you're going to be talking about, what you're going to be saying to folks if they show up early for the documentary this Friday.
Yeah, so starting at 5, I'm just doing like a little meet and greet. I'm gonna have a dog, harness, sled, just like the basic gear and all that, where you can just say hi if you have any questions. And then at, I think 5:45 is when my presentation starts. I'm basically just kind of telling everyone like who I am, what I'm doing, and kind of ways to support me and things like that. And then just following that with a short Q&A and then the Iditarod documentary.
And that'll be great. That'll be good. Great to get it from your perspective. If folks, obviously we got folks listening all the way up in Fairbanks, all the way down to here and across the state. So if folks want to help support you, and I think this is if every listener dropped a $5 bill into your bucket, that would probably be a big chunk for you to be able to work for this next season. But if folks want to donate time, money, the contents of their freezer, et cetera, what's the best way to do that? Do you have a website? Do you have a GoFundMe page? Do you have how do folks help you out?
Yeah, so I do currently have a GoFundMe going, and I think it's just like support Addy Pederson's sled dog team. And then I do also have like a Facebook page and a website. It's Windshield Kennel. That's the name of that. Yeah, if you want to follow the Facebook page, I try and post there a little bit about my dogs and what's going on at the kennel. And then the website also has some like bios for each of the dogs, a little more information on me and my team and like ways of contact and stuff like that.
Okay. And again, anything that they can do to help, like I said, a few bucks, or even as you said, cleaning out the freezer to help out. This is again Addy Pederson. That's ADDY Addy Pederson, PEDERSEN. SON rather, is Addy Pederson, and she's got links to all of her dogs. I'll drop the link in the chat room here, but it's windchillkennel.com if you want to go over there and take a look at it and donate there. It'd be a good opportunity to help support her for the race season. I'm going to go ahead and drop her a $5 bill here just to get her going. I'm sure that $5 would be like chomp one dog meal for one day. But every little bit helps, for sure. Let's talk about a couple things before we're going to keep you through this segment before we let you go. But I'd like for you, just so that folks out there can understand what it's like to be Addy or anybody else who is living the dog mushing lifestyle. Can you walk me through a day? I mean, today's obviously a Monday, and you're kind of interrupting your schedule here by being on the show with me, but give us an average day for Addy. What does it look like from the time you get up to the time you go to bed? What's your average day as a aspiring musher look like?
Yeah, so right now in the summer it's pretty easy. The dogs they get the summer off. So I feed them in the morning and feed them in the evening, and then middle of the day I go down and give them water and scoop the poop. And then I also have this big free run fence that me and my dad built, so I always make sure I let at least one small group of dogs free run daily. And then I do work part-time, so that's another thing that sometimes works into my schedule, and I just take care of the dogs just before and after work. And then come training season, that's when it gets to be pretty busy. So the dogs are typically fed about 2 hours before we go for a run. Go for a run that can be anywhere from 5 miles, 60 miles. Just it gets more and more as the season progresses. And then the dogs are then fed after the run. I homeschooled, so I'm taking online college courses. So I always got to make sure I do those and work that in around dog mushing. But yeah, it can get pretty busy.
When you're in the season, does your day start? I'm assuming your day starts pretty early to get things rolling.
Yep. Yeah, I typically get up pretty early to go feed so they can have their breakfast and have their stomach stretched before we take off on our run. So getting up at like 4 or 5, it can be normal in the winter.
Normal in the winter. And then you do your schooling on top of it. And then you come back. And do you run every day? Do the dogs get a chance to run every day, or do they go every other day? What's the formula there?
I think it's like we run about like 4 or 5 times a week. So they definitely get rest days to recover from long runs and stuff like that. But we're running most days, and runs right into the late into the evening. This is like is this like a 10 to 12 hour day for you every day? Yeah, especially when we're doing those long runs. There's times when I've like come after finishing all the dog chores. I've come into the house at like 11 o'clock, eat dinner, and then go to bed.
To get up at 5 o'clock the next morning and go it all over again, right? Yeah, welcome to adulthood. That's what it feels like. Adulthood early on, for sure. Anthony in the chat room says, I'm not knowledgeable, he says, but I've always been curious about what the standard kit for long trips like this would look like the Iditarod, or even the shorter ones that you're doing now. Are you toting your own food and water? How strict is the rationing? What are you doing? I know that they're dropping food for the dogs. What about for you? What does it look like when you set up for these races? How much are you hauling yourself versus how much is being staged, et cetera, et cetera?
Yeah, so each race has their own set of required gear that you have to have at your sled at all times, and typically that's just emergency gear. And then you basically carry whatever you're going to need for the run that you're doing. And at most checkpoints, you can send out drop bags with food for yourself, food for the dogs, and whatever other gear you would need, kind of to like replenish your supplies at each checkpoint. And so that's how you can, like, you don't have to carry everything that you need for 1,000 miles in your sled. You just basically are carrying what you need for your 50-mile run between the checkpoint, just
Right.
food-wise for the dogs, stuff like that.
Yeah, because I imagine if you really had to load the sled like it was back in the day, right? When it wasn't a race, it was an actual, we got to go there. Those sleds must have been just absolutely loaded with gear to be able to make it, 5, 6, 7, 800, 1,000 miles.
Yeah, no, there's even been times where just I'll pack all my like required gear and whatever else I need. I'm like, geez, like this is a lot of gear. Like I couldn't imagine not having drop bags to go like send them stuff out.
Right. Yeah, because then you got to feed the dogs, right? I mean, at the end of the race, you got to feed the dogs. How big is your team right now, Addy? What are you running as far as number of dogs, and what's the breed?
Yeah, so I have 18. They're all Alaskan Huskies. I have 4 that are retired. They don't do any more racing. They just help train the puppies. And then I have 12 dogs. That's my core group of dogs. They're the ones that do all my training and racing. And then I have 2 yearlings. They're a year old, and so they'll do a little bit of the training. They might do one race, but really I'm just trying to give them a good like base miles this year and set them up for a successful following season when they're old enough to do like a couple 100-mile races.
Yeah. Well, this is I mean, it's a again, my hat's off to you. I mean, I've done a lot of outdoor stuff, but the older I get, the more I appreciate a nice warm fire and a comfortable couch. You know what I mean? So you keep doing it. You're getting a lot of it done. Again, you can find her at windchillkennel.com. And there's a big donate button up on the top of the screen there. And so I would encourage all my listeners, like I said, even $5 would help, put a little more kit into her kit and get her squared away. Maybe get her a new playlist. Yes, that's what somebody just said. Headphones and a great playlist is what you need for sure when you're out there mushing by yourself, or a good audiobook, right? You're running out there doing your thing. Addy, again, you're going to be there this Friday at 5 p.m. at the Porcupine, right, for your meet and greet.
Yep.
And then you'll be doing the presentation about 5:45. Which dog are you bringing? Do you know which dog you're bringing and harnessed up?
Yeah, so it's my retired leader. Her name's Cleo. She's about 10 years old and she loves hanging out with people, so she'll be the one to come.
She's going to be the perfect one to come out there and press the flesh and get their photo taken and everything else, and that'll be great. One final question: when you're running, I know that some mushers, and especially down here, because we don't have nearly the snow usually, in most places that they have up, in the interior or whatever. Are you running your training with sleds? Are you hauling a 4-wheeler behind the team? What's your normal training look like?
Yeah, so we start training in August, and we start with the dogs hooked up to the 4-wheeler, and I am giving the 4-wheeler gas. They're not just pulling it, and we're able to go on like gravel roads and on some trails. That's how we get our miles until we get snow, and then once we get snow, maybe in like mid-November is when we'll be on a sled. Then it's pretty nice. We'll just go. We can run from our house out to Caribou Lake, out up to like Oil Well Road. So we got lots of training opportunities in the winter, but it's just a matter of when we get snow pretty much.
Right. Well, it's again, I'm appreciative of you, and you have my admiration, and we'll see if we can send some folks over there to you to help donate. And then, of course, anybody who's down here on the Lower Peninsula this Friday, 5 p.m., you get a chance to come out and meet Addy, meet Cleo. Get a chance to hear her presentation and everything else, do a little bit of Q&A, and that'll all be taking place between 5 and 6 at the Porcupine, and then the new movie, the new documentary, Iditarod 53, kicks off right at 6 o'clock there at the Porcupine. So, Addy, thanks for taking the time out of your busy, I know you're busy, your busy day to come on board and share with us, and good luck on this season, and we look forward to hearing more from you and hearing your name out there on the lists as you get older to run the Iditarod. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for having me, and hopefully I'll get to meet some of the listeners at the Porcupine Theater this Friday.
That'd be great. Her dad just said in the chat room, if you purchase Run Addy Run tickets at the Porcupine, all those funds go to Addy. So if you want to come down and purchase the tickets directly there, the Run Addy Run tickets, all those funds go to Addy. Or, of course, you can go to windchillkennel.com and you can donate there. Or if you've got a freezer full of old fish that you don't want to do anything with and want to give it to her dogs, again, I'm sure you can reach out to her there on the website and do all that kind of stuff. Addy Pederson, junior musher and future Iditarod champion. Thank you so much for coming on board, Addy. It sure is good to talk with you.
Yeah, thank you.
Hold the line for just a second. Oh, she's gone. All right. Well, that's it for now. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we will return. It is the Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. We return right after this. Don't go anywhere.
If you missed the show, you can listen to it on your time with Dukes On Demand. Oh, and it's free. Like America used to be. Streaming live every weekday morning on Facebook Live and MichaelDukesShow.com.
All right, we're in the break. Addy done took off on us there. But I mean, just again, I am so admiring of somebody who has so much passion for something like this at such a young age. It's amazing. So congratulations. And my hat is off to you. My hat is off to you out there. No problem, Eric. Thanks for having her on, and thanks for supporting her. Again, what an amazing, it would be interesting to me. She said her brothers and her siblings are like, no, we don't want to. It'd be interesting to see like the side by side. One sibling is like totally into, I don't know, coding or something else that's, totally an indoor sport, and Addy's outside at 30 below mushing dogs. It's interesting. I love to see kids with differing interests. You know what I mean? Like one's totally into the outdoors, the other one is totally into something that's more indoor based or crafty or whatever else. It's interesting, but I love that about Alaska. So again, if you want to go over to her website, it is over at windchillkennels.com, and I'm just donating $10 right now as we speak. Let me type in my own email address here so that I can continue. Okay. No, where's mine? There it is right there. Boom. Okay. I'm just leave me alone, guys. I'm just donating money here to Addy as we go through. Okay. Is that it? Did I do it? Oh, okay. It's asking me to log into my PayPal. Okay. We're gonna We're gonna get her done here. We're gonna get her done. Okay. There we go. And done. Donate. Okay. All right. So I just did my part. I hope most of you would go out there and, it's the cost of a cup of coffee, $5, whatever, do it to it. Go out there and make it happen. Okay. So now I'm done. I did all that. Give them strong coffee. Henry's like, give your dog strong coffee before the race, like an energy drink. Woo, man, some crazy stuff. Well, how was your guys' this weekend? Did you enjoy it? I certainly did. I had a great weekend. It was amazing. It was absolutely spectacular. Got a lot of good work done, and we just had a fantastic time around the house. Got a few little chores taken care of, but not too much. I finished Chris Story's latest book. I finished that this weekend, the narration for that. And so that should be up here in another week or so. And so you'll get a chance to go out there and enjoy that. So it should be amazing. Here probably take about 10 days for him to get that thing over to Audible and get everything ready to rock and roll. But so that was a good chunk of my weekend, finishing that up. It's amazing how even a short book, it's amazing how long it takes to edit and run all those kind of stuff. And get it edited. You figure for every hour of audio, you're into it for probably 5 or 6 hours of actual work time. But it was amazing. It was amazing. Brian says, I finally got a washing machine. That's what he's excited about, the fact that he finally got a washing machine. Kevin said, I just wanted to say I love the music after the show. I left the stream on last week and the music was playing, and I decided to let it run. The music is, just so that you know, is royalty free from a guy named Harris Heller. And if you go to Spotify and look up Stream Beats, he's got 2 albums up there that I use quite a bit, White and Gold. Those are the 2 names of the albums. So if you like that music, go look up Stream Beats, White and Gold, Kevin. If you want to go over to Spotify, he's got a lot of good music over there, Harris Heller on Spotify. But he runs it for me, and not for me specifically, but anyway. Have you finished Lisa's book yet? She does have a book, just in case you were wondering. I have not finished Lisa's book. I don't think she's going to have me read that. I mean, do you think that? I don't think that's going to happen. No.
The Michael Duke Show. Seriously humorous with a pinch of intellect. Sorry. That is humorous. Here's Michael Dukes.
Okay. Hi, how are you? That was a fun way to start out a Monday, No politics, no, getting agitated, anything else. It was just a little bit of an admiration session for a young Alaskan who's just doing some good stuff. Addy Pederson, just wow. She's doing, she's doing, again, like I said, the older I get, the more I appreciate my couch. I know that sounds bad, but man, sometimes after a 60-hour work week, I'm like, I just want to put my feet up here and surf some of my favorite YouTube. I'll watch a half hour of Decoy Voice or something, on YouTube, or Coleon Noir, or Brandon Herrera, or somebody that I enjoy watching on YouTube. That sounds like a good afternoon for me sometimes on a Saturday or Sunday. I just, yeah, it's great. Anyway, welcome back to the program. Thanks for coming in and joining us. Like I said, I just went out during the commercial break and I dropped, it was $10 into the kitty for Addy to help her keep racing. And so if you want to help support her, I would encourage all my listeners, forego that cup of mocha Javicino that you were going to pick up at Starbucks today, and help Addy out. Help a 16-year-old who's out there, breaking all the rules, breaking all the stereotypes of the useless teenager who's squalling about Facebook or Snapchat or whatever. Anyway, it's a good it's a good thing. So anyway, you can find her at windchillkennels.com. windchillkennels.com. Okay, later on in hour 2, I just got it confirmed. We're going to be talking with Kevin McCabe a little bit. Now, part of that is because I just now saw Kevin's latest article. He's been doing a lot of writing, and he's been pretty prolific. He's written a new piece over there for MustRead, and this came out on Friday. 12:30. Yeah, Friday. This came out on Friday, and we're going to be talking about this piece. Anchorage lost 7,000 students. Here's where they went and why. So we're going to be talking with Kevin McCabe about that in hour 2 this morning. And can I make an observation? Thank you. I appreciate you giving me permission on my own show to make an observation. I've been watching the news coverage across the state over the last 5 or 6 years, and it started to change in a lot of ways. And you've heard me complain about it a little bit, where I'm a little concerned that the journalists in the state for the various news outlets are not doing as much investigatory kind of stuff, that more, it seems like, and this is just me, and I'm not trying to be too critical, but it seems like a lot of times it's more a paraphrasing of press releases from various entities rather than any deeper reporting. And that might not be fair to all of them, but some of them, it's just like, guys, can I have something, can you go a little bit deeper into some of these things? And then of course, you lost some of the better journalists. I think I would put James Brooks in that category. He went over to the Alaska Beacon from the ADN. We saw Nat Hers leave the ADN a few years ago, and he went out to kind of do his own thing, some freelance stuff. And while I know that a lot of these guys have kind of their own spin on things, they usually at least get down into some of the details, and they ask some questions, and things like that. But it's been kind of sad to see more and more where there's not a lot of deeper journalism into some of the areas that, that I would think that more Alaskans would be interested in. But let me just say this. It's been interesting to watch MustRead Alaska, which started out as the Republican newsletter. I don't know if you remember that back in the day when Suzanne Downing was. MustRead was like the Republican newsletter, and it was primarily kind of just a Republican mouthpiece in many ways. Now, it's still got the slant. There's no doubt about it. It's still got that conservative kind of right-wing slant to it. But they are doing more stories, I think sometimes deeper stories, than any of the other news outlets appear to be doing, which is really interesting. And I think it shows the benefit of the, I guess I would say, homegrown. It's just no longer is it like mainstream media, right? It is these alternative news sources. Now, again, you got to kind of take everything, the good with the bad. You got to kind of know that everything's got its own slant. When I'm reading something from the Alaska Current or the Midnight Sun blog, I know that it's got more left-leaning tendencies. When I'm reading it from MustRead, I know it's got more right-leaning tendencies. And when I'm reading from the Alaska Landmine, I know it's kind of just all over the place. And, it's just kind of but, at least the thing that I like about MustRead is they have got more local state news stories than almost any other outlet. It's kind of encouraging to watch. And so I guess I just want to throw my hat off to John Faulkner and the crew over there, and Suzanne Downing and all the folks at MustRead, at Ben Carpenter, who's now doing the MustRead podcast and everything else. They seem to be doing some good hard work over there in getting these stories. They've got a lot of great columnists, everywhere from Alexander Dolitsky to Wynn Gruning, Michael Tavolario, Kevin McCabe, of course, has been writing a lot of pieces over there as well. But there's some good stories over there, and I just think that it is I just wanted to make that comment because I was thinking about it this morning, thinking, man, I got 15 tabs up this morning with different news stories. 6 or 7 of those tabs is from MustRead. I've got two tabs from the Anchorage Daily News and 3 tabs from the Beacon, and then 4 tabs from the Peninsula Clarion. And that's it. But again, most of the statewide stuff is coming from MustRead Alaska, which is, it's interesting to see how far the non-mainstream media have come in just the last few years. And I think they deserve our support in that regard. So anyway, that's the comment for today. What are some of the stories we're going to be talking about? Well, the FBI is asking the public's assistance to identify another bank robber at the Wells Fargo branch inside the Fifth Avenue Mall. That's when you know it's ballsy, when they walk into a mall to then rob a bank inside of it's like there's layers upon layers of security. Apparently it happened at about 1:40 p.m. on Friday. A man who is dressed, quite ironically, he's dressed like Where's Waldo with the striped shirt, the baseball hat and everything. It's like, where you're looking for this bank robber, just find the Where's Waldo and you'll get. Anyway, the man, described as possibly in his 40s or 50s, approximately 5 feet 5 inches tall, entered a bank, demanded a note to a teller demanding money. The note said he was armed, although there was no visible weapon. He'd been observed sitting in a massage chair outside the bank entrance prior to the robbery because, being a robber is a stressful situation. So he needed to make sure he was all loose and ready to go. So he was sitting in the massage chair right before. Hopefully he used his debit card to run the massage chair before he ran inside. After receiving an undisclosed amount of cash, he exited the mall on foot. And although law enforcement officers responded quickly to the scene, he was not immediately located. Now, I don't know about this day and age. I would think that bank robbery in this day and age of incredible surveillance and every level would be a really kind of a hard job. In fact, the last bank robbery in Anchorage occurred just about a year ago on July the 13th of last year, when a man named James Searles robbed a local credit union and got away with a whopping $450. He was then caught later that day and sentenced to over 13 years in prison for the crime, which he committed, by the way, while he was out on supervised release from a previous bank robbery conviction 10 years previous. 450. You do what you know, right? I guess you do what you know. $450. Although that sounds a lot more like, you know what? I don't like it out here. I'm just going to go do this again and go back to jail. That's kind of what that sounds like. I'm just throwing that out there. That possibly could be the motivation for that. Anyway, where's Waldo? They're looking for him. If you know, you can call the FBI. Hour 2 is dead ahead. The Michael Duke Show. Yeah. I mean, this guy, yeah, I guess you could say he looks like the Hamburglar. Or Where's Waldo? I mean, the black and white striped sweater with a black hat, baseball hat, and the black backpack. And he's color coordinated. At least the guy's fashion conscious, right? I mean, I just don't know how are you going to, they got cameras everywhere, man. Cameras everywhere. How do you think you're going to get away? And unless it was, $500,000, I just don't see how that is even worth it. Just even worth it. Last guy, 13 years for $450. I don't know, man. I didn't know bank robbing was still a thing. That's kind of the thing. All right. Let's see what else you guys are talking about. Anthony says, I suppose I need to fix this real quick so that I can call Kevin. Let me do this real quick. Get the thing set up so that I can call Kevin, and we can talk about this. All right. Let's see. Let's see if that works. Okay, that's acting weird. I'll turn it all the way off and we'll try it all. We'll try it again. We'll turn it off and turn it back on, right? Isn't that what we're supposed to do? If it doesn't work, we get the blue screen of death. We turn it off and turn it back on. Hello, my name is Mark. How may I help you? All right, Mark, we're going to turn it off and turn it back on and get things ready to rock and roll. Frank says Kevin has some great... Oh, Kevin just jumped in and did it the old-fashioned way. I love it. Thank you, Kevin. Kevin just jumped into the... he's got the link. So he just jumped into it with a computer. I love it. Anthony says, I do not approve giving dogs coffee. I'm not sure it's a good idea to be the caboose on a train of dogs running at high speed with coffee-induced rumble guts. Yeah, I know some people are just like, I can't drink coffee unless I, strap a bathroom to my backside. If anybody can tell me about what happened to the high bush cranberries, I'd love to hear it, said Kim. I'm devastated. 3/4 of all the bushes are shriveled up and brown. Some kind of blight fungus or something. I don't see any spiders or bugs. Huh. Interesting. Maybe the heat? Maybe the downpour? I don't know. I don't know what's going on. Yeah. Anthony said they snagged some degenerate last week in Fairbanks who was abducting women and drugging them with meth and then assaulting them. We're getting a little out of pocket up here in the interior between shootouts, serial pedophiles, and daylight robberies. Make sure your firearms get a splash of hoppies and your sights are zeroed in. Yeah, no, it's kind of crazy what's some of the stuff that's been going on around the state. All right. Okay. I'm just going through here. We should demand that, yes, thank you, Brian. We should demand that bank robbers get a living wage. We should. That would absolutely make sense. All right. Well, now that I am all paranoid because Addy's audio wasn't working properly, let's. I'm just going to test out Kevin's audio real quick. He's got a co-pilot with him right now, but we'll see if his audio. He's muted, but can you hear me, Kevin?
Yep, I hear you just fine, Michael.
Okay, good. Oh my gosh, that guy's taking over. Look at that guy. All right. Well, good. Well, I'll be right back to you, my friend. I just wanted to make sure that I could hear you since I didn't want to have a repeat of what was going on here. What was going on here in the last one. Okay. All right. Maybe Kevin will mention that the Matsu Borough took over grant applications for the railroad spur. Hope it gets moving fast. I also saw that they got a grant. I'm sure Kevin can talk about this as well. They got a grant to finish the wasn't the ferry dock. It was a ramp. It was a new ramp for it's an $8 million grant, I think, from the feds on a ramp for the loading and offloading. We'll talk to him about it. He's got all the details on it. It'll all be there. So that's all good. All right. Well, let's we'll get into all that stuff and talk about it. So is the crown YouTube's new flag? The crown on YouTube, if you're watching on YouTube and you're commenting, the crown means that you're one of the most frequent commenters on the YouTube channel. That means you're the king of the channel. That's what the little crown above your, and there's a number inside of it, like 1, 2, or 3. You're the top 1, 2, or 3 commenter on YouTube. That's why you get the crown. Don't get paranoid. Everybody's like, what does the crown mean? What is it? What are they trying to say? Are they watching me? Yes, they're watching you. They're saying that you are one of the most frequent commenters out there. Okay. We're ready to go. We're 40 seconds out. Kevin McCabe is our guest. We're going to talk about this article, which is fantastic. Can't wait. We're going to talk about this here up next. The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio.
Whoa, buddy. Put that thing back in its holster. We haven't gone anywhere.
I don't understand.
Check out the MichaelDukesShow.com for information on how to get access to the podcast.
Welcome to the party, pal.
The Michael Dukes Show.
The greed and the entitlement is astounding to me.
What more could you want from a low-budget radio program?
This is a dumpster fire.
That's just BS.
It is time to get a new perspective.
We know just what you need, and we've got just the cure. Open wide and prepare for a steaming hot cup of freedom.
I just don't fathom it.
The Michael Dukes Show, streaming live across the world.
Live around the world on the interwebs at MichaelDukesShow.com and across the state of Alaska on this, your favorite radio station and or FM translator. Hello, my friends. Welcome back to hour 2 of this Monday edition of the show. It's been great. It's been a great Monday so far. It really has. And we're loving it. And surprise guest today. I read his article, which came out on Friday. I didn't read it till this morning. Okay. Remember, I unplugged from all the news over the weekend, unless it's on YouTube, just because I'm watching YouTube or something like that. But most part, I am not paying attention. And I read Kevin's article this morning and I shot him a message and said, man, that thing is dynamite. I'm going to talk about it today if you have time and want to swing by. And he had time and wanted to swing by. So Kevin McCabe, representative from Big Lake, joins us this morning to talk about his latest piece over on MustRead Alaska, which is talking about one of my favorite topics is education. And so Kevin joins us this morning to discuss it. Good morning, Kevin. How are you this morning, my friend?
Good morning, Michael. How are you?
You know, no complaints. It's a Monday. There's no snow. I'm feeling pretty good about it. I mean, that's a plus for me.
Yeah,
Kevin, I wanted to talk about this article because it seems like you're channeling a lot of my thoughts here as to what's been going on in the school districts. And we've been talking about this, obviously, for the last year and a half, because school funding has become the soup du jour for the legislature and all the politicos and everything else. It's the one thing that they all seem to want to talk about. So I want to get into this because I've been saying this for a long time. One of the main problems with the education funding in the state, not that I've said for years that there's something fundamentally broken in the education system across the country, not just in Alaska, but because we've clung to this, and you've talked about it, the Prussian model, the old, the Industrial Revolution style schooling. That's what it was built for. It was built to make workers. That's what the original school system was built to make workers to go work in the Industrial Revolution. But one of the things that I said that is wrong with the education funding is that schools are losing students. And because they're paid on a per student basis, it has created this problem where they're having this continually accelerating decline in enrollment, which leads to a continual lack of funding. And yet they continue to act like they need the same funding that they had for 10,000 students as they had for 9,000 students, kind of thing. And you really break this down. The headline of the article is Anchorage lost 7,000 students. Here's where they went and why. So walk us through this, Kevin. Start at the beginning and let's just get to it.
Sure. So that article, yeah, I won't lie, the genesis of that article was some discussion that you were having last week on schools and school choice and that sort of thing. And I started thinking a little bit about the free market and the way conservatives talk about the free market economy and how people that don't like a retailer of some sort, they vote with their feet and they go to a different retailer. And, we've talked, or I've written before, about the children sort of as grist for the mill, and parents are no longer accepting that. I think in this day and age with social media and with so much information available to parents and students, that the parents are saying, hey, look, we absolutely must find a better education system for our children, a better way of doing things. So I looked at that, and I looked at a few things. I looked at the governor's op-ed and the Moore decision, which doesn't only talk about the legislature funding schools, but it talks about the legislature providing a school that is good for not only children in Anchorage School District, but for children in the villages too, that the kids can learn from, and excel at a school at a village school. And the only possible way, in my opinion, to do that is to make sure that the parents are involved, that the parents have choice, that the parent has a way to choose what the student wants to do, and what the parents want the student to learn, not just what the NEA and the school districts want the student to learn. So,
right. And that's something you don't get too far into in the article, but I think could be its own separate article in and of itself, because, everybody says, we guys are always beating up on the teachers and the school districts, everything, and the parents. You're right. The parents play a critical role in their child's education, as documented and referenced by parents who homeschool or parents who take their kids to charter schools, because they are intimately involved with their children's education. I would love to find a way, although I don't want any kind of government mandate, I would love to find a way to get more parents engaged in their child's education, because if there was, we probably wouldn't have this problem, because they would have looked at this poor scholastic outcome 10 years ago and gone, wait a second, something's got to change. They would, if they had been engaged back in the day, this wouldn't have gotten to where it is right now, right?
Yeah, 100%. And my premise has always been, and my thought process has always been, with many things, we need to focus on the children and not on the teachers and not on the jobs. Like the Anchorage School District just said, administrator just said, he's focused on job preservation. Well, what? Shouldn't a school district administrator be focused on our children's education? We're focusing on the wrong thing here, folks. We are creating a generation of kids that are not going to be able to sustain and support Alaska, and make us competitive if we don't train is the wrong word, but teach our kids better than we are doing, and so I kind of backed up a little bit and looked at what I thought might be the issue, and in doing that, I discovered that there are a bunch of parents out there, almost 5%, 3 to 5%, I think is the number, maybe 3.98% of parents and rising are just taking their kids completely out of the school district and doing private schools. And that's a nationwide trend if you look at it, where parents are saying, you know what, I don't trust the school district anymore. I don't trust public education anymore to train my kids or to teach my kids. So I'm just going to take them completely out. And they're paying up to $15,000 a year in Alaska for most of them are religious schools, but there's still private schools, and you don't have to worry about the school district and all the DEI, critical race theory, Common Core, all of those things that we've been arguing about and talking about in the last couple of years. The parents don't have to worry about it. They have complete control over what this school teaches their kids, because if the school doesn't teach them right, they just vote with their feet.
Now you go through in this article and you start to compare the biggest school district, Anchorage, with the Mat-Su in many ways. And you start off by talking about, I mean, again, looking at Anchorage, they have lost nearly 1,000 students a year, every year for the last dozen years.
Yeah, well, so full disclosure, there's a math error in that first sentence there. It's a byproduct of writing at 2 a.m. when I can't sleep. So, yeah, it's not. It's more like 500 students per year for the total of 7,000. So apparently, at 2:30 or 3 a.m., I can't add and divide properly.
Wait, are you a graduate of Lathrop High School like me? No. No, yeah. But I mean, they've lost thousands of students over the last dozen years.
Sure. And that's why the funding is suffering, is because as I've said in previous articles, is the funding for the school districts depends on the number of children that are going there. So maybe we need to fix the school funding model a little bit. But more than that, as Governor Dunleavy said in his op-ed, is the same thing. We need to focus on the children. And one of the things that Alaska does best is our charter schools. And so why would we not want different authorizers? What if UAA was a charter school authorizer? What if, I can think of many other, Northern Industrial Training was a charter school authorizer with a CTE sort of focus on, right. There's a kid that wants to be a welder or a driver or some, there could be, there's the excellent charter schools in Anchorage, the Japanese immersion school, the Rilke Schule German immersion school, which my granddaughter went to, those kinds of things. Holy cow, we should be encouraging those instead of discouraging them. And it's just frustrating to me that we are sort of locked into this old model.
Yeah, no, I mean, and I think the governor wasn't asking for too much when he basically said, make the state board of ed one of the authorizers, right? It wasn't just a local school district. And you make that point. Why would a local school district want to authorize its own competition? Right? That's like polling. That's like polling Lowe's. Would you like a Home Depot to go in right across the street from you? Now, there would be some argument to say yes, because competition is good and you can get bleed over, blah, blah. But most of the time people would go, well, no, of course not. We're not going to allow McDonald's to decide whether or not a Burger King can go next door. And why should we go to the main school board when basically the charter schools would be competing directly for students and dollars with those brick and mortar schools, which aren't doing great.
Right. And, when you think about it, I mean, if you go back to Adam Smith and the free market economy and that sort of thing, our school system in many places, in many cities and villages, is a monopoly. And even when you do have charter school authorizers like the Mat-Su, it's still kind of an oligopoly where there's limited choice. What if we had unlimited choice? And that's, there's a shifting gears a little bit. There's that Moore decision 2005 Moore versus the state of Alaska decision on education and education funding. And the little known paragraph in their conclusion is not only does the state legislature need to focus on, and I think I said this earlier, but focus on school funding, but we need to focus on a quality education for our children. And I suspect that if we can't get to that point, that the legislature is going to be sued over it. And then what? Then where is the Association of School Boards and the school administrators, the Alaska Council on School Administrators, or where are they going to be? The NEA? Are they going to? They're just going to leave the state holding the legislature holding the holding the bag. And we need to be better than that. We need to focus on our kids. We're creating a generational problem here, and we really need to fix it.
Rep. Kevin McCabe is our guest. We're talking about education, one of my favorite topics here on the Michael Duke Show. We're going to continue here in just a moment. Don't go anywhere. We'll be back. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. We'll return with more in just a moment, right after this.
If you missed the show, you can listen to it on your time with Dukes On Demand. Oh, and it's free. Like America used to be. Streaming live every weekday morning on Facebook Live and MichaelDukesShow.com.
Okay, Kevin McCabe is our guest. We're continuing here. I'm moving some stuff around here. I'm going to do that right there and that right there. Okay. The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. I appreciate you saying that, Kevin, because I was like, man, Kevin is like sharing a brain with me. He's like, this is what we just talked about on the show, was this. And so I'm good. At least we're starting the conversation on this, because until the school districts acknowledged that a big part of the problem is this decline in enrollment, they're never going to find the solution, because they're not admitting what part of the problem is. The biggest part of this is the loss of their students. I think overall it's like 11% of students in the state of Alaska are being homeschooled or correspondence or charter school or learning pod or some form of alternative non-brick and mortar school, or what you would consider to be a standard brick and mortar school. Something like 11% of our students are in that. We are, people are leaving in droves, in part because many of them discovered during COVID that it wasn't exactly what they thought their kids were getting, right?
Right. And they hear about the Common Core. Remember that from a couple of years ago, and then the critical race theory and the diversity, equity, inclusion, where you're not, you're teaching the kids that the color of their skin matters more than their character or than their merit. The merit based, their knowledge, that sort of thing, and so we're sort of developing a group of children that are dependent on their their race or their skin color or the area of the country they grew up in or their wealth, and that's not right. We should be teaching our kids that they can get to where they want to be with the American dream through the merits of hard work and school. And some parents understand that. Nobody wants to talk about the Mat-Su, but I will tell you that the charter schools and the CTE schools in the Mat-Su, the graduation rate is exponentially higher than anywhere else. The chronic absenteeism is way less in the Mat-Su, especially with the children who touch CTE in any way. And frankly, that's most of the school district right now, where whether it be, you're attending a certification class in the last period of the day to get a forklift certification at the simulator in the Wasilla High School or anything like that. it piques the kids' interest, especially if they're not really thinking about college. They're thinking about a job afterwards. Their dad might work on the North Slope, and they're thinking that that's a good place to go and work. They can get safety education. There's just so many opportunities, and nobody wants to talk about that. If you talk to the school board, AASB or the ACSA in Juneau or any of the NEA people, and you bring up the Matsu, they kind of poo-poo it. Oh, the Matsu's an anomaly because they're growing. Well, why are they growing? There's comments under the MustRead article. One guy said, absolutely, I left Anchorage because the Matsu school district looked like a better fit for me and my children. And,
right.
I just wonder if that's not, I mean, we're kind of seeing the free market economy between, between localities, between the difference between Anchorage and the Matsu,
Look, that 10 years ago, when I had a pro and con list, like, Mike, you want to leave Fairbanks, and I used to be the guy that said, oh, I'd never leave Fairbanks. And then it was, well, now I'll never leave Alaska. But at the time it was like, I had a pro and con list. And one of the reasons why was I could see the direction that kind of Fairbanks was going in many different ways, including politically and everything else. And I didn't want to have anything to do it. I didn't move to Anchorage because, one, it was too expensive. And two, I could also see the way that Anchorage was going, whereas the Matsu was conservative, leave people alone, low taxes. They were booming. That's one of the reasons why I moved. I voted with my feet. And I think that's what people are doing across. That's why Matsu is growing so fast, is because it's one of the last bastions of kind of that common sense, get out of my business conservatism that we've seen around the country.
Right. I totally agree. It's something that we need to focus on. And if the school districts like the Anchorage School District were smart, they would look at how a entrepreneur or a small business does it, and or even a big business, and pivot and say, hey, wait a minute. So our school funding depends on the number of kids. How do we increase the number of kids? Oh, we do that by engaging parents, by finding what the kids want to learn, by looking at what society is becoming, whether it be teaching classes in AI or the sort of developing job market, and pivot that way and find ways to get kids interested, get parents engaged, and then maybe people will say, whoa, wait a minute, maybe I should stay here. This looks like they might have a better idea. And instead, we're just building Inlet View Elementary at $50 million that they don't need, because they're right now about 50% occupancy for all schools in the district.
Right. Kevin McCabe is our guest. Welcome back. The Michael Duke Show, common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio. Sorry, I got into this conversation with Kevin, and we just jumped back into the radio. So welcome back to the program, and thank you for coming in and joining us. Kevin McCabe talking about his latest article here from MustRead Alaska, which is entitled Anchorage Lost 7,000 Students. Here's Where They Went and Why. So again, let's break that down. Parents are fleeing a rigid bureaucratic system in favor of options that reflect their values and their children's needs. That's what you said, Kevin. And you highlight why the Matsu is growing, and it's because it delivers on those options, right?
Right. And I was privy to a conversation a couple weeks ago where there was a group of Anchorage business leaders hosting a dinner with some of our congressional delegation. And one of the things they said is, it used to be that 50% of our workers, of our employees in Anchorage came from the Matsu. Now it's more like 80%. And it just highlighted for me the idea that parents and people are realizing that they can move to the Matsu. They can put their kids in this great school system that's run by Dr. Trainee and our fabulous school board. Kathy McCollum is the president, and just a fabulous, former teacher, retired teacher, and really, really smart. And so they're led by this group of folks that's focused on the kids. Let's focus on the kids. Let's focus on their education. And so their parents are recognizing that they can still work in Anchorage and put their kids in a Matsu school. And those are some of the reasons that Governor Dunleavy wants to have open enrollment, because maybe the parents, would want to shift somewhere or other depending on where they work. And, it opens up so many opportunities. So.
Right, absolutely. Now you talk about, and we've talked about on the program, and you've mentioned it a couple times, but you talked about the model that our public education system is built on across the country. This is not just an Alaska issue. This is a nationwide issue. I mentioned it earlier. It was based on the Prussian school model, which is from the 19th century, where they were basically, at that time, they were looking to build, they wanted obedient subjects who would then join the military and do those kind of things and be able to do that. We adapted it here in America because the Industrial Revolution was happening, and they were looking for people. Prior to that, it was mostly about entrepreneurship and farming and things like that, apprenticeships and everything. And they had to change it because they were looking for obedient workers. That's what it was about, was creating obedient workers who didn't ask a lot of questions, went in, built their widgets, and went home at the end of the day. And that, of course, was the change of the times at that time. And now today we have a completely different model in America when it comes to workers and everything else, from technology to what people's goals are, their life goals, or what they appreciate or what they desire more. A lot of times is the experiences and other things. People change jobs. They don't sit in a job anymore for 30 years. And you kind of go into that a little bit. We need to address the funding, not the funding, but the schooling mechanism itself, right? We need to look at what work doesn't work now and how we could change that to make it work today.
Sure. The fundamental premise or the base of our school system right now, I think that came in Gatto's book, Weapons of Mass Instruction. That's where that came from. And from talking on this program, frankly, you and I have had this discussion before, but if you think about it, in medieval times and in early Europe, you had the guilds, right? So a child decided, well, I want to be a blacksmith, or I want to be a farrier, and the parent would send the child over to the farrier who would train them up and that sort of thing. And then we kind of moved into the early American agrarian, which is where we got daylight savings time and all that sort of thing. And the kids were going to school, but they sometimes had to be off for the harvest. It's kind of where we got our 9-month school period. The kids had to be off for the farms. And then as we moved into the industrial age, we needed workers that were going to be able to work in a factory for 8-10 hours a day and just continuously and sort of obedient do their rote building factory work. So we kind of morphed our school system to that. Well, we're no longer really in that age in the United States. We're not in the industrial age. We're in a modern sort of technology. Yeah. So maybe it's time to shift our school system to that sort of thing. I'm thinking Khan Academy, and there's so many of those online engaging systems that we could use that kind of being stuck in this old Prussian model of schooling is a problem for us. And,
right. One of the things that's holding us back from this, for the most part, and holding things the way that they are, kind of trying to lock everything in amber, so to speak, is the National Education Association. That's really the crux of this whole problem, is that they are not just an organization dedicated to protecting teachers. They're dedicated to protecting their little fiefdom of what they're doing and the control that they have.
Well, and just look at their latest national convention. And I read a whole bunch of stuff from, I think, who was it? Corey DeAngelis, maybe. Showing all of the resolutions they had. And I'm looking through that kind of with horror, saying, well, where's the focus on the kids? Instead, we're focused on DEI and LGBTQ and all these political things that, hey, how about an NEA focus on read by 9, or how about an NEA focus on math? Now there's some parent-led things that are focused on teaching their kids math. And how about a focus on AI or CTE or anything for our kids, and it's all political with them. So, you know from talking to me, I was a union member for 24 years. I was in parts of the leadership for 20 of those years. And I think the unions are fabulous. They have a place. They're supposed to be there to protect the workers, but when they stray off into this political thing and they lose their focus, and the NEA, National Education Association, when did that become a union? So I don't know. It's very frustrating to me to see them sort of lose the bubble.
One of the problems that we're seeing is that there is no self-reflection, right? There's no self-reflection on what are we doing right? What are we doing wrong? Most businesses at the end of the year, when they're doing their budgeting or doing, planning for their strategic plan for the coming, 5 years or 10 years, they're like, what have we done right? What have we done wrong?
Right.
And yet we don't see that in the education system. I remember back in 2000 and it must have been 2007, 2008, when Sarah Palin came to Fairbanks as the governor, and she was talking about one of the things that had just come out was that the graduation rate in the state was at 74%. That meant that 1 in 4 students was not graduating, was failing out of the system. And of course, that if you went even deeper, you found out that many of those that did graduate were wholly unprepared for any kind of further schooling. They had to take remedial math and things like that. And here we are 20 years later, and our graduation rate in the state has gone from 73% to like 76. So we've increased it 3 whopping whole points. And nobody's saying, nobody in 20 years has looked at that and say, how do we improve that? What do we do differently? We've seen our education scores go from, 46 now down to 51 on some of these things. And yet we continue to pour exponentially increasing amounts of money into the system and thinking that that's going to do it. Now you compare that with, you keep coming back to the Matsu, which is good for you. The Matsu charter schools, their graduation rate is huge compared to what the average is.
Right. It's like above 90, 94, I think comes to mind. I can't remember the exact figure, but yeah, it's amazing. And, one of the things that you just mentioned is, we need to look at the outcomes. So there was a hue and cry amongst my fellow conservatives that were all concerned about, I think it was in HB 57, it mentioned how high schools should be tracking their students for 20 years afterwards. And everybody was all upset that we were going to implant chips in the kids' forearms so that we could track their every movement. That was not the idea behind that. The idea behind that was for schools to say to schools, hey, you need to see where these kids are working. So, colleges do it all the time. Maybe the Old English, PhD in Old English literature is not the best fit for somebody that's working in a coffee shop, 15 or 20 years later. So maybe colleges look at that and say, maybe less focus on a PhD in Old English literature as a graduate degree and more focus on making coffee. Those are the kinds of things that we need to study. We need to know where our kids are going. We need to know what they're doing 20 years later, 15 years later. Are they working in the industry that we prepared them for, or is it a different industry? Have they gone on to self-educate in some sort of after post high school class, technical class? Maybe they joined a union and they're now a journeyman electrician. Did our high school prepare them for that, or should we maybe change our classes? That's all that was really designed to do, and everybody got kind of upset because they didn't read into it what the intent was, I guess.
Right.
So.
Well, one of the things I think we could learn from, for example, I have friends who are from Germany, and we were talking one day about the differences in education. And I'm not saying that we have to take the German model as gospel, but one of the things that they do is they decide early on, usually in the late grade school era, into what we would consider to be junior high or middle school, I guess. They check the aptitudes of the kids. They see what they're doing, and they make a decision there as to whether the kids, as they go into their high school years, whether they'll go into a college track, or whether they go into a technical or blue collar or some kind of career tech track. They decide that early on, so that the kid's whole education is kind of built around that kind of destination. Whereas here it's just kind of scattered. Although the Matsu is doing a lot. You mentioned Milton Friedman and his book, The Role of Government in Education, that was written all the way back in the 50s. And he talks about offering, the state should fund education and set standards, but shouldn't dictate where the child learns or how they learn, and how the Matsu has really played into that with charter schools and a huge CTE program and correspondence options and everything else, offering all the variety of things that parents want and students want. That's the big thing, is what the students are interested in and looking at.
Right. And with the screen time that the kids are developing these days, and all the interests and all the quick little short reels that whether it be welding or craft or woodworking or those kinds of things. And I think we need to, and then he goes to school and he hears about how because of his or her skin color or his or her situation, that they can depend on the government for a job, or that they can depend on not the merits. And then they think, well, why should I bother? And so we need to interest them. We need to keep our school system up with current technology, and figure out what interests the kids. When I was in high school, we took tests, and I was such a disinterested student that when I took that test, it said, yeah, you're most qualified to be a painter. And nothing wrong with painters, but I think I've proven that painting just wasn't my forte. And
right.
So
yeah, well, we've got to find a way to inspire these kids and get them going. I want to talk a little bit more about the NEA and some of the things that they're doing, which are, in my mind, antithetical to kids and to their education. We're going to continue with Kevin McCabe here in just a moment. Back with more, The Michael Duke Show. Common sense, liberty-based, free-thinking radio.
Listened to by more staffers in Juneau than any other show, because their bosses told them to. And after what they just heard, oh man, they're going to be pissed.
You're a bad, bad man.
The Michael Duke Show.
Okay, we're in the break right now. Kevin McCabe is our guest. We're talking about a lot of this. Kevin, I think, again, I'm going to go back to it. I think a lot of people's eyes were opened during COVID, because up until that point, they had been like, oh, schools are fine. My kids are, they're this or that, the other thing. But then when COVID happened, and it was a couple things, it was one, the reaction of the teachers and the unions to parents basically saying, hey, we still have to work. You should still have to work. Get back on your stick and go, right? Kids are a low vector. They're a low COVID vector, and, all this other kind of stuff. But then also these parents were sitting behind their kids when they were being schooled remotely, and they were like, this is the education we're getting. This is not working for us. And then on top of that, you had the millennials who were kind of making different life decisions and saying, you know what? I don't really care so much about a career as I do about basically just making a living and then having experiences that we can look back on, right? They cared more about that. I didn't need to have a career that was 30 years long. I could switch jobs a dozen times, and that's not a big deal. It was just this fundamental shift that came out of COVID that I think that has opened up a lot of people's eyes.
Sure. And, a fourth facet to that is some parents pulled their kids out of school and they decided to homeschool them. My daughter-in-law was one of them, and they found out, wow, I can do this. I can teach my kids. And not only that, but when I teach my kids, And when we work together, they can finish their grades, they can finish their schooling in about 6 months instead of 9 months or a year. Um, and parents realized how sort of held back many of their kids were by the school system, because the school system is teaching to the sort of the lowest common denominator. When you have a class of 25 kids,
they're teaching at the speed of the slowest student, essentially.
Right.
Slowest learner, right? They all may have the ability to learn, but some learn faster than others. When I was in high school, I was always bored, not because necessarily the subject was boring, but because I got it. I got it in the first 2 weeks. Why do we need to spend another 3 months on the topic, kind of thing, right? And that's what they're getting. I was the same way. We had several people here on the program who said we started homeschooling our kids and they were done by December. They were done by December. They were done in 4 months. And they said, and they were still working 5-6 hours a day, but they got it done in 4 months instead of in 9 months. And that's that's what we see all the time. Why are we stuck on this? Why can we not get beyond this idea that this is the only way to teach?
And one of the arguments I heard about homeschool for a long time was, well, your kid's not going to be socialized then, he won't have the social skills. But the Matsu has overcome that you can, if you're a homeschool kid, you can still play hockey at a school. You can go to gym, you can go to PE. There's some of the CTE stuff is available to you. The Matsu has just totally embraced the homeschool idea. And I think it is sort of put to rest the argument that your kid's not going to be socialized if he's a homeschool kid. And I think that's another reason that we need to look seriously at the way the Matsu is doing things and see if we can't model that in other school districts.
Yeah, no, absolutely. We should always be looking, and this again goes back to that self-analysis, which I think is part of our problem, is that nobody wants to take a look at how we're doing things. We should always look at places that have had success with what they've done, and we should adapt and adopt those things. It's like the Read by 9 thing, right? That came out of Florida, and it was like pulling teeth to get it in, but now they've got it in, and it's immediately seeing results. Mississippi spends less than almost any other state in the nation, yet they've jumped from the bottom to the middle of the pack on their scholastic achievement. We need to look at that and say, what did they do, and how do we adapt that here? How do we take that and make it even better for us? But nobody wants to do that.
Right. Yeah, and reading is so important. We don't talk necessarily on this program about the individual classes and that sort of stuff, but if you can't read, you can't. I suppose you could do verbal on your screens, on your iPad and that sort of thing, but you need to be able to read. And we have so many kids that can't. When my oldest was 3, I think we were 3, 4, we were teaching him to read. By the time he got into elementary school, he was reading at high school levels, and he was a problem kid in second class. This was back in the 80s when Alaska had that extended learning program in their public schools. Fortunately, he had a teacher that recognized that his problem wasn't that he was not smart. His problem was that he was bored, because we had taught him to read, and so she put him in extended learning, and it was the best thing that ever happened. And we need to get back to that kind of teaching, those kinds of teachers, and not do this.
Absolutely. All right, here we go. The Michael Duke Show, Common Sense Radio. Let's do it.
Public enema number 1. Oh, wait, sorry. Public enemy number 1, which makes more sense. On the other hand, he's a little bit of a pain in the Michael Duke Show.
Kevin McCabe is our guest, representative for House District 8 up there in Big Lake. We're talking with Kevin about education, and we pointed out that one of the major stumbling blocks of any kind of education reform is the NEA itself. And you point out some of the things that the NEA is doing, not just in the state, but across the country, that is kind of slowing this down. Can you hit us with a few of those things, Kevin?
Well, sure. And I said it previously, but we need to get back our NEA and our teachers unions needs to get back to a focus on teaching our children. We need to get back to focusing on, it's kind of crass, but focus on the resource. Our children are our resource, our country's resource. And going forward, if we're going to, but if we're going to make America great again, we need to make education great again. And unfortunately, the NEA is not focused on that. They're too focused on politics and teachers and the education industrial complex, as you and I have talked about before, and not focused on our kids. And that's why I think the Mat-Su is successful. They're struggling just like any other school district with money and funding and infrastructure repair and transportation costs and everything else. But their main focus is on the kids. And I think it shows. I think it shows in graduation rates. And, it's just the differences are amazing. And I can't say enough about how the NEA needs to shift their focus back to kids.
Well, yeah, because one of the things that they're doing, they've got a lawsuit, right? They're backing a lawsuit challenging the abilities to use correspondence allotments for private education. They have been backed in some of these things where they're pushing for, you're not spending enough, you're not providing enough education, or you're not providing adequate funding, and that means it's not enough education. But Mat-Su again has proven, between their correspondence programs and their career and technical schools, they've got a whole thing where they offer 7, 8, 9 different career pathways and dozens of certifications for various things. When a kid comes out of high school, he could be certified for Cisco or welding or OSHA tech or all these other things where they're ready. It's I guess shovel ready kind of thing. They're ready to turnkey to go and just jump right into the market. And that's the kind of thing that each school district should be taking on their own.
Right. Just the forklift certifications, say the Wasilla High School has a Go Warriors. They have a certification system for forklifts, and it's a big computer simulator model, and it's all set up, and that's like a $1,500 class if I were to go take it at NIT or somewhere. So and that's available to high school students for free, and so those kinds of things are some of the things that the Mat-Su is doing that are sort of innovative that we need to focus on. And I think we need to focus on all of the above. We need to think outside the box. The first step in solving a problem is recognizing that there's a problem, and there is a problem with our kids. And the faster we can recognize it, the faster we can open ourselves up to solving it. And let's try things. This whole opposition to the charter school authorizer thing. Charter school parents, they keep saying, well, it gives up local control. The ultimate in local control is a charter school with the parents involved, with the parents voting on curriculum, and then the parents can vote with their feet. It's the free market thing. So to me, it makes so much sense. But man, the lineup against it is just is frustrating.
Kevin McCabe is our guest. You should go out and read this article. Again, it's over on MustRead. It's entitled Anchorage Lost 7,000 Students. Here's where they went and why. I think it's a wake-up call. I think that anybody that is truly looking at how do we make schools better, Kevin's got 4 steps in there that I think really make sense and make a lot of sense to that. We should establish a state level authorizer board instead of having it be just the local school districts. We should protect allotments, defend the parent directed correspondence schools against the NEA backed lawsuits. We should expand the Mat-Su model basically to make it for every school district should have a CTE type program that does those kind of things. And then equity enhancement, which you said provides transportation stipends and scales allotments to support low-income families and things like that. Those seem to be like 4 solid choices to make things better.
Yeah, and I'm just trying to think of ways that that will actually pass, that we can sell to people, that we can get people on board with, and that's kind of what it took with the Reads Act. Unfortunately, is it took a lot of input by Senator Begich and Governor Dunleavy and others to get this across the finish line, and a lot of discussion. And is it perfect? No. Is it going to be perfect? I sure hope so, because it's proven that we are on the right track, and maybe we could use that as a model as well for some of these other thoughts and ideas. Let's start. Let's just start instead of shutting everything down.
Quick change of pace here before we end the show for today, Kevin. I saw that the Point Mac, the port out there at Point McKenzie, they just received a grant to continue to expand the facility out there. Obviously, nothing to do with the railroad per se, which is one of the key factors in making that really hit. But I saw that you were crowing about the fact that you guys just got a new grant for a ramp out there. You want to give us the details on that real quick?
Yeah, so the Borough Assembly, 6-8 months ago, put $2.5 million into building this barge ramp. So there's an issue in South Central around the Matsu and in Anchorage and Cook Inlet, rather. Barge operators don't have a place to pull their barges up and work on them, or to store them for the winter. There's a small facility in Homer. They might have to go to Seward, which is not as well equipped. So what we thought is we could provide a service that Anchorage can't by having a barge ramp that they could pull their barges up to store them in the winter. Cruise Construction has a bunch of barges, and maybe AML or Tote wants to pull a barge up and do some welding or something like that. So this barge ramp is something that Anchorage doesn't do necessarily. They're not real into barge traffic. And so the Matsu Assembly, the Borough Assembly put some money towards it, and then they applied for this BUILD grant. And forgive me, I don't remember what BUILD stands for, but and part of that, it's a DOT grant, and part of that grant requires your congressman just to fight for it, to go in and talk about it, and to build consensus for it. And that's what Congressman Begich did. And so we did. We got $7.8 million to complement the $2.5 million that the Matsu put in, which will go a long ways. In fact, I think it will pretty much complete it. Maybe not quite, but and this barge ramp will be fabulous towards making Port McKenzie a revenue generator instead of a net drain on the Matsu finances. We're close right now with the number of barges and ships. I think a couple months ago we had one ship and 2 barges at the dock all at one time. So that port is becoming what I've always envisioned it to be, which is pivotal to revenue and infrastructure development and resource development here in the Matsu and in the state of Alaska. I have big visions. Railroad going to Matsu, maybe rail out to Ambler, maybe even rail to the North Slope, all kind of centered on delivering to the Matsu for resources to export, to go to our Indo-Pacific allies and that sort of thing. So,
well, all we need now is that it's not many miles too of rail, right? That's what we got to do to hook up. It's just a handful of miles to get that rail hookup, and we'd be done and ready to go.
Right. Yeah, it's 32 miles. We have to finish 7 miles of rail bed, which is all across flat farmland. It's the easiest one to complete, and then we need to put steel and ballast down, and then we'll be able to go from Port Mac all the way up to Houston and tie into the main Alaska Railroad spur. So,
well, that's the next choice out there. Kevin McCabe, our guest. Again, you should go out and read his article at MustRead. Kevin's been apparently an insomniac and doing a lot of great writing in the middle of the night. Kevin, thank you so much for staying engaged on this and making the points. I think this is very good. We should continue to be focusing on this, and appreciate you coming on board this morning at last minute.
Yeah, thanks, Michael. I appreciate the opportunity.
All right, hold the line for just a second. Folks, we're out of time. Tomorrow is Tuesday. Brad Keithley comes in for our weekly top 3. Chris Story will also be joining us, and more. We appreciate you guys coming in and being part of it as always. We'll see you tomorrow morning at 6 a.m. bright and early. Be kind. Love one another. Live well. The Michael Duke Show. Common Sense Radio. Kevin, Melissa Burnett, the president of the Fairbanks School Board, said she loves what they're doing down there. She just wants to understand it. She said, except the Mat-Su School Board never responds to her when she tries to reach out and ask them for advice. When she was asked how does she reach out to them, she said she's reached out to the school board president and the board president, and she said she sent a dozen emails trying to understand how they budget and what they do, and says maybe if you could put her in touch with the board, she'd love to talk to them. She said Mat-Su's doing something right. I'd like to pick their brains. So maybe you can help Melissa make this connection.
Sure, I'd love to help. The board president is a friend of mine, and Dr. Trainee, of course, is always available. So I can certainly put something together for him. That would be my pleasure. I'd love to do that.
No, I would love to, and I would love to see the Mat-Su be, like you said, the model. Expand that model across the state. That would be the way to go. So maybe. Yep. Melissa can reach out to Kevin. I can connect you two, and we can do that as well. And Lisa also said she's been fighting this Nikolaevsk school thing. She said they're working to get CTE into their charter school at Nikolaevsk as well. And so they're working on CTE. They have their meeting tomorrow. Maybe you should call Kevin, Lisa, and get some ideas from him as well as to what could make that work.
Yeah, I know that the Nikolaevas thing is at the top of Sarah Vance's radar as well. She's very interested and engaged with that. So, and I agree. A small area like that, CTE is maybe the key to bringing that school, charter school, into the light, so to speak.
Yeah, absolutely. Melissa said she just dropped you a message, Kevin. So check your unfriended messages out there and see if you can get her squared away. And let me know if you guys can't connect. I'll connect you up. All right, Kevin McCabe, thank you, my friend. Appreciate it. Thank you for coming on board.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate you. Appreciate all you do out there. Folks, we got to go. Tomorrow is another day. We will see you then. Have a good one. The Michael Duke Show, Common Sense Radio.
We've shed our terrestrial radio skin, and now we are slimy lizard internet people. It's the Michael Duke Show.
Bye.